All right. Good evening, everyone. So it's 8:47, and I wanted to just briefly go live to talk about some of the really active weather that is coming really to millions of Americans over the next couple of days. I was looking at the weather forecast as I was getting everything ready for tomorrow morning's forecast and was really just amazed at how impactful the weather will likely be for tomorrow and into Saturday. We're talking about flood watches that are, by the way, now in effect for New York City. So we have all those millions of folks from Philly all the way up through New York City that have flood watches. We have flood watches all the way down to South Florida, all for the same couple of storm systems, and that's just the East Coast. We also have a very strong storm that's going to be impacting the West Coast. As I was putting together this weather map, it just became so obvious that there's a little bit greater need than a typical weather for what is about to play out over the next couple of days. So that's why I'm going live on this Thursday evening to kind of give you a heads up on what is going on. So let's start things off by looking at the forecast model, what I was looking at just a little while ago. So I'm going to switch this over to our forecast model, and there it is. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger for you too. And as we're looking at this, I'll kind of sort of walk you through this so you can get a better idea of what we're looking at. But this is the American GFS model, and you've probably heard people at least reference this in that exact way. So I think, well, let's try to open that. But this is the American GFS model, and we'll move it forward in time. And what I want to point out is that there are two different features that are here on the map. And I did want to draw on here, but apparently I don't think that's going to work on this browser because I would have to close it and then open it again. But there's an area of low pressure in the northern part of the United States, and then there's an area of low pressure in the southern part of the United States. And if you've been watching Weather with Eric updates, we'll get to that in a moment if you haven't been, but if you've been watching the updates, I was mentioning how there was a possibility of these two pieces of energy coming together to phase and create this pretty large storm system over the eastern part of the United States. So these two systems are not going to phase, but there's just so much moisture with both of these that the impact of the northern United States is going to be heavy snow, and the impact for much of the rest of the United States is going to be rain. And that rain does also include for New York City. So let's get back to the forecast model. And at what we're looking at here, this is Friday afternoon. So we're just starting to see that moisture pushing into, western Pennsylvania and Ohio. The entire South is going to have a rainy day tomorrow. And then there's some really heavy rain that pushes into South Florida tomorrow evening. So places like really from south of Tampa and south of Orlando all the way down to Fort Myers, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, Key West, all will be dealing with some very heavy rain tomorrow night, and there are flood watches for South Florida because of that really heavy rain. So that's the southern area of low pressure. The northern area of low pressure is going to be producing some heavy snow. Tomorrow, that snow is moving through the state of Michigan, but tomorrow night and heading into early Saturday morning, that snow pushes into western and central New York, mainly north of the Thruway. We'll get to that in a moment as well. And then that'll impact the Northeast. So I'm going to switch the view here. We're looking at the same model. We're zooming in. So there's the snow on Saturday morning. Albany, New York, Glens Falls, Syracuse, Oswego, Utica, all will be dealing with snow on Saturday morning, probably enough to shovel or even plow. And then that will slowly move out. There's a bit of a wintry mix you see there in the pink. Meanwhile, New York City will likely be dealing with some heavy rain. Let's zoom in a little bit there on New York City. Look at that dark green. So Saturday is going to be a really wet day, and that is Saturday afternoon where I've stopped the map. You can see that area of low pressure is passing by. Very heavy rain on Saturday for New York City, and that's why we have the flood watches that are posted for New York City. So we got a lot of different things going on here. We got the snow in the northern part of New York State and Michigan. We have the heavy rain that's going to impact Philly and New York City, and flood watch is posted. We got really heavy rain that's going to fall in South Florida with flood watches posted there. There could also be a few stronger thunderstorms in the southeast, maybe the potential in South Georgia in southern parts of South Carolina as well, where there could be some stronger thunderstorms, and maybe even North Florida. So we'll watch out for some severe weather there. I'm going to switch over to one of my graphics that I think I was showing earlier. I'm going to go back to that because I do have another graphic that I can show you. So we had that one there. We also have another one that will show you some of the snowfall amounts in the Northeast. So let's move that forward. Well, I guess we'll start off with the weather map. This is actually a really good way to show you what's going on. A much simpler way to show you what's going on. So you got that area of low pressure that is in the north. You have an area of low pressure. Let's switch that one over as well so you guys can see that. The area of low pressure down to the south. And then we have that area of low pressure out west. So there are a lot of things that are going on here with these three pieces of energy. But I do want to show you some of the snow that will be impacting the Northeast. So I'm going to move that graphic forward and show you a little bit of that. And it is a very impressive amount of snow here in the Northeast. Look at these amounts. So we're talking in Syracuse in that 1 to 4 inch range, Albany in that 1 to 4 inch range, but you get over toward Rochester, and I think what we're going to see is some lake enhancement, the wind turning out of the northwest. So you get the cold air coming in across Lake Ontario. It's already going to be snowing, so we don't call it lake effect, although it sort of is. It's lake enhancement. In other words, it would be snowing, but we're enhancing that snow because of the lake, therefore lake enhanced snow. And I think that will play out for Rochester. So there's the potential of up to 8 inches of snow near the Rochester area through Saturday morning. And then, of course, as you move east, as we make the map a little bigger there for you, north of the Thruway, we could see well over 8 inches. The Adirondacks, for anyone who is like, oh man, I didn't get a good skiing season, this may help you out with a little bit of a late season skiing, at least for maybe a week before it starts to melt away. But 8 to 14 inches of snow will fall over the Adirondacks between, and that really should say Friday night through Saturday evening. That's what we're talking about. So it's Friday night through Saturday evening. So let me show you what I have on my computer there. Of course, we were looking at the forecast model. It's going to zoom that back out, switch screens a little bit. So this is what the forecast model looks like. So it's very similar to my map, but you can see, I mean, some of the models are hinting at upwards of 2 feet of snow. I think that's a little bit excessive, but I certainly could see a 14 to 16 inch amount there north of Albany. But you get the idea. This is a pretty big deal. But let's zoom out a little bit and show you. I'm going to move this clock back here. And through the central part of Michigan and stretching east into western New York, there's a pretty good swath of snow here as well. So this goes from Iowa through southern Wisconsin, central and southern Michigan, and then over to western New York. There's a pretty good swath of 3 to 6 or more inches of snow through that part of the country as well. So again, impacting millions of Americans with this very impactful storm that is going to get going here later tomorrow and heading into our Saturday. So that is basically what I wanted to show you today. There, of course, will be a little bit more detailed weather update as we take a look tomorrow. Let me just put that back up on the screen so you see that snow amount there. But we got that big swath there from southern Wisconsin over to Michigan, over to New York State. I think in New York State, north of the Thruway, you're going to be a little bit surprised at what you wake up to on Saturday morning. You think it's spring, but if you've lived in central, western, upstate New York any short amount of time, you know that this happens, right? Spring is sort of just like a moment where you celebrate that that spring is on its way, but it's usually not quite here yet. So you're going to have to wait a little bit longer for that. But I think it still will be a little jarring to wake up to that snow on Saturday morning. And of course, it will be impacting travel in that part of the state heading into the early morning hours. I did actually, before I let you go, I prepared one other thing that I think I ended up closing here. But I want to show you the flood watches. These were just posted really a short while ago. These are the flood watches that are in effect for the New York City Metro. That does include all 5 boroughs. It also includes over toward Jersey City and Newark, central New Jersey, and then it does extend out toward Philly. And our forecast models are suggesting, and I'm going to switch that over too, because these are one of the things I look at. And as I was preparing the forecast, I looked at this rainfall amount, and I was just like, wow, this is impressive for the fact that this storm's not really that strong. This is just a kind of typical area of low pressure. It just has so much available moisture, and that's what's making it impressive. So it's not that it's a strong storm, it's just that there's so much moisture that's going to be impacting the entire eastern United States. So this is the precipitation total, 24-hour precipitation total, and just look at this. Look at these numbers, and let me make those a little bit bigger for you so you can get a better look at those numbers. This is an impressive amount of rain that will be falling across the Northeast. And again, keep in mind, this is a forecast model. So these numbers, of course, may be jacked up a little bit, but I don't think they're going to be too far off. And this kind of gives you an idea of why even the forecast model was suggesting 20 inches of snow up toward Glens Falls by Saturday evening. You get nearly 2 inches of liquid. If a lot of that falls in the form of snow, you're going to end up with well over a foot. But as you look at the New York City area, and we can zoom this in even more because New York does have its own view. Look at these rainfall amounts for New York City. We're talking about a very substantial amount of rain falling from tomorrow night through Saturday morning. So there's going to be some flooded roadways. The FDR always floods even in a persistent rain. So we're going to get those flooded roadways. We're going to get probably some significant ponding of water on roadway or on roads where maybe you don't usually see it. But as far as basements go and sort of that subway flooding, unless you get over an inch of rain in an hour, that you're not going to see that. So I don't think we're going to get that kind of rain, but we are going to get certainly a rise in those creeks and streams in New Jersey. We're going to get some urban flooding in the 5 boroughs of New York City, and we're going to get those typical flood-prone roadways to see some pretty significant ponding of water on roads. I mean, we're talking 2 to almost 3 inches of rain falling from Friday night through Saturday. And Saturday is going to be the day when most of this rain falls. So count on not a good day for getting around on Saturday. So that is basically the summary here. And then again, you have the snow on the north side of this from the thruway points north. And as you saw in the forecast model, that 8 to 14 inch forecast is really a conservative forecast because there are some models that are suggesting a lot more snow than that. So be ready for it. That's why I came on live to give you a heads up. It is going to be starting tomorrow night and going through Saturday, a rough day in the Northeast. It's going to be a rough night tomorrow night in South Florida. I'm talking about Friday night. And then we also got the West Coast. Didn't talk too much about it, but Northern California, Southern Oregon, really going to get hit with some really heavy rain. And we have flood watches in that part of the country as well. Lots going on. But stay tuned for weather updates. I should let you know, of course, that we still have that Weather with Eric app that if you haven't downloaded, you should download it. It is available on the iPhone, so go to the App Store. It's also available on Android, so go to the Google Play Store to find it there. And both versions are great for getting caught up on what your local weather is going to be. There's also some really cool moon information too. There's a tab there for the moon phase. We are approaching the next full moon, the worm moon coming up, and there's a lunar eclipse coming up early next week as well. And then if you want to get these weather updates sent to your email, I would love for you to subscribe. And you can subscribe on Weather with Eric on my website, which is, and I'm going to put it right there on the screen for you. It's ericadameontv.com/sign up. So there it is right there at the bottom of the screen. All right, guys, have a good night. Going to be a busy one for all meteorologists tomorrow night into Saturday. Be ready for it. It's a good day on Saturday, I think, to stay in and just chill out. Have a good night tonight, though, and I'll see you tomorrow morning with your regular weather update.